So that's true, but they're both the same when it comes to this person
Yes.
they want to get healed. So
Ooh, it
I
doesn't matter your power and
doesn't matter
privilege.
because I can't do a thing.
Welcome back. Another week, another episode, The Word Made Fresh, the weekly show where we talk about upcoming narrative lectionary texts that are being preached here at the Riverside Church. Maybe in your church, do you use the narrative lectionary? It's fantastic because we are in full narrative mode right now. Luke, going chapter by chapter. Last week was chapter 6. This week is chapter 7. That's right. So, Reverend Thorne, you are in the pulpit this week, and we got a couple good stories here from Luke chapter 7. Jesus healing the centurion's servant, and then Jesus raising the widow's son at Nain. Give us just the, Cliff Notes version. What are these stories, and then how are you holding? You told me you were excited about them, so I just want to have you start talking instead of me. Go!
Yes. Yeah. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to say. Um, I am really struck by all of the coming and going. So let me say something about that. Anna, who's the preacher? Anna Carter Florence is a homiletics professor, and she often will teach workshops where she invites people to go through the text and pull out all the verbs. And there are times when you do that where it is really eye-opening. I'm struck by Jesus's amazement at the centurion's sentence about, I am a man set under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and the slave does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd, said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And I'm like, why is that faithful? And then, of course, I go through the text, come, 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 come. It's like all over the place, and and he went, and he entered, and he came and healed the slave, and the large crowd went, and then he came forward. This is in the widow raising the widow's son.
Yep.
There's just a lot of coming and going, and so that's what I've titled the sermon, but I don't really know, I still don't really have figured out why the centurion's words amaze Jesus and why they link with faith. You got any
Yeah.
ideas?
No, I mean, it's almost like, isn't that what the chain of command is supposed to do?
The
Why is that
chain
surprise?
command.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Now that's juicy because we don't like command. We don't like chain
No.
of command. I mean, we just came out of some stuff at church where this becomes a challenge for us. But it also has me thinking about conversations I've had with friends lately about humility. I'm about to preach a sermon. It was about, actually, I preached a sermon on MLK about Christian unity, and how Jesus humbles himself to be a servant in that Philippians text, and how much we don't want to humble ourselves. When I was at Radio City, to make that thing happen, everyone has got to commit to following a leader. Like the director says, we have something where it says you train left. The person that's left of you sets the location. So if everyone is training left, that's how you maintain the line. I find that it is harder and harder, it seems. I think particularly post or in this after COVID moment, for people to train left, right? To follow a leader, to humble ourselves and be in service to the direction. It's like, well, why do you get to say the direction? I think I should get to say the direction. You'll have 40 dancers on a stage and everyone thinks they should weigh in or say what should be done. And it's hard. It's hard to make a movement or make a change or heal the world.
And who do you want to trust? I mean, I think part of it in the Roman chain of command, there was in the mini military, you trust the person because they're your superior officer. But in our world today, people in authority, why should I trust you? I
Right.
mean, you vote different than me. You have ideological values that are dissonant to mine.
Right.
You're telling me I have to wear a mask. Well, I have a couple words for you. You know, there's
Yeah.
all. Well, Joe Rogan told me this. Why should I listen to someone with doctor in their name? You know, there's
Right.
all sorts of who do we want to have faith in? Who do we want to believe? Who do we want to trust?
And then, of
Whew,
course, the
yeah,
folks we have trusted have betrayed us.
yeah.
And I know that's the case in the church. I don't mean our church in particular, but just the church writ large. Abuse scandals, financial
Oh yeah,
impropriety, just even personal feelings of disappointment and
yeah.
dejection. And so it is a challenging thing to put your faith in someone, even in Jesus and God, I think, because people's loved ones die, jobs are lost, money, there isn't enough. And so it can feel that the God who has made these promises isn't reliable either. But it really is an extraordinary something. And I guess that's why Jesus is so amazed at the way the centurion leans into that chain of command.
I mean, he's also the centurion, so this is the person at the top of the chain of command who's
Right.
like, "I say go, I say come, and my troops go, they come. I say jump, they're already in the air." So his faith is from the authority side. So he is it's a interesting position to be in. But I do think this story and the stories connected with the widow are an interesting pairing because
Mhm.
a Roman centurion is is not going to be the protagonist in many minds of first century Jewish or Judean people.
Right.
He represents the occupation. He represents
Right.
the empire who's coming to tax them and take
Right.
them.
Right.
So Jesus is helping the person from the other team, the person who we don't like,
But
and then the
he's,
widow. The
yeah.
widow's the overlooked one in society. The widow is the marginalized. Now Jesus is helping the person who just doesn't have any privilege and power in
Right.
society. So it's like Jesus is showing up on both ends of that.
So that's true, but they're both the same when it comes to this person
Yes.
they want to get healed. So
Ooh, it
I
doesn't matter your power and
doesn't matter
privilege.
because I can't do a thing all of my money and power and whatnot cannot heal this person.
Yeah.
And for the widow, the same is true. So it's a great equalizer. You actually need Jesus.
All right, there's if you don't preach that one, someone's got to take that sermon because I just think that's
I
great.
still
That's great.
don't understand why Jesus thinks he's so faithful. Maybe because he really believes in the system
I
that
guess, yeah.
allows maybe that's not a good place to focus if I can't figure it out.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole
Huh.
the centurion's like, you don't even come into my house. You know, you don't have to come. I know that you just say it and it works. Like I
Yeah.
can give a command, it happens. So he's equating Jesus to a
To
centurion.
himself.
Like the
Yeah.
way that I just say thing and it happens, you can do the same, right? Which is kind of an interesting point of view to have, for a centurion to have on a rabbi. Like you have the same authority with your magic as I do with mine. But yeah, so there's
And
something there too.
apparently, so I'm reading that he purportedly loves the Jewish people. He built a synagogue for them.
So this is a good guy.
Well,
He of all
maybe
the bad guys, he's the good guy.
maybe he's not purely bad because then the question is, well, why is he working for the empire
Yeah.
if
He's
he
com-
loves the Jewish people?
Why don't
And
you convert, dude?
and then I mean, and this is Professor Gerald Liu, super smart homiletician himself,
Yep.
but he says, but do you need to be worthy to be healed? Do you need to be worthy to benefit from Jesus's healing touch? So isn't it available to a centurion as much as it's available to a widow? Which is another great question.
I don't want it to be,
I know.
but it should be.
It's like when my kid says, we're praying for the people we love and the people we don't love. I mean Donald Trump, right? Because she really took in what I was saying, which is as she's growing up,
Yeah.
all the people belong to God. And so she's praying for all the people, even the ones that are hard to love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a fun just place to sit. Because if you saw Jesus talking to these two individuals, it's going to be pretty easy who we are encouraging Jesus to go help. Like, no, 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 that guy's good. Yeah, it's a loss. Loss is loss, and pain is pain, and grief is grief. But she's had it harder, right? But Jesus is like, listen, people, great equalizer, suffering, death, grief, lament. We all experience those things, and we need someone to be present with us wherever you land on the ideological or privilege spectrum.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jesus isn't astonished by too many people. You know what I
That's
mean?
true. You
He
know, this guy
marvels.
surprises Jesus. Yeah.
He marvels at this guy. And Professor Liu says the word might even be translated as admired. And it's
Hmm.
like, I don't know.
It's like those few times, like when he says, "You're not far from the kingdom of God." You know, like he's like, "Yeah, you got it. I think you're." And this
Mhm.
is another one of those moments, like Jesus is amazed by this guy.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, I think the widow's son story is always an easier one
Yeah.
to preach because of all of the commentary on widows and orphans and what we know about what sons do for mothers and wives, daughters. So the fact, and it's also a raising from the dead, which is, always an astonishing, miraculous moment. And restores to her, and this goes back to a couple of weeks ago, not just her son, but also, I talked about the everydayness of life. She's not, there's so many things that won't be possible for her in her everyday life if her son dies. So he's healing not just the son, but the mother, and then all the people that they touch. There's this ripple effect when folks die in this culture. That I think is also the case in our culture, though we're not as maybe as close to it as they were in this century. I mean, it impacts food, it impacts housing, it impacts societal recognition. It could lead to ostracization. And we've got other things in place. Like I know this is kind of funny when friends are ill, or someone had COVID, or there even when there is a death. I've called friends and said, "Hey, can I send something?" You know how we used to bring casseroles, or we would like well, or you could order something to deliver. The thing is now I can order my own delivery, right? I can hire my own, maid to come over and clean my house or do my laundry. If I've got the means, I almost don't need the community. Although we do, I think deep down inside. But what's interesting about these Lucan stories is both the individual piece of it and also the ripple effect of what's happening to an individual and its impact on the folks they touch as well, I think.
Oh yeah, and that's clear in the widow story because, like you said, the widow without a son is now literally at the farthest edge of marginalization. And where's her where's the vitality for her future? Like the death of her son ostracizes her from society even more. So it's like this resurrection story isn't just about a kid coming back to life; it's about this widow's whole livelihood being restored, which there's a whole message right there of like when gentrification happens and pushes families out of their housing they've had for generations, like that's a death that needs to be resurrected so that family can be made whole. And that's a systemic issue that touches more than just one individual, and the ripple effect is huge. And then I think of the ripples from the centurion.
Hmm.
How did that guy shift his just like he's already, favorable to the Jews, but what does that moment of, miraculous hospitality from Jesus, how does that ripple into the way he then leads? I want to know his story. I want to know Centurion Part 2. Someone write that fan fiction.
So Jerry Part Two, that's really good. And we have to imagine, even with the widow and her son, that it's bigger than the two of them. There may
Yeah.
be other widows that she has care for or charge of.
Yeah.
Maybe her son helps her help other widows who maybe don't have sons, or you
Yeah.
know, there could just be a bigger community of folk who are also, sort of biting their nails if that son dies. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's at least 1 or 2 dozen sermons here, I think. So
Right. Yeah. So I think maybe I'm not calling it coming and going. I'm not sure that I don't know. I'm gonna sit with it. I'm gonna sit with it.
yeah,
We'll see.
you got a minute. The secret to these is we record them in advance. I think you know that. And then sometimes the surprise is, what is she actually going to preach from all this?
Right.
Which maybe it'll be something you heard here. Maybe it'll go in another direction. That's half the adventure, because
It is.
sermon writing is more art than science. I think it's, putting your finger in the air and feeling where the spirit is blowing
Yeah.
more than it is some sort of like certainty of like, oh, I know what this is supposed to say. The research is helpful, but it kind of gets us just some other voices to see where God is leading us. So
Right.
let's
Right.
all join the ride and see where God is leading you as this sermon comes to the pulpit this coming Sunday.
Absolutely. And I'll just say another Anna Carter Florence tip. That the beauty of recording these in advance is the story is in you and it's marinating. And
Yeah.
that is one of her tips as well. You read the text and you start living your life and you just start seeing stuff. Like a song will come on or someone will say something. And if it's living in you, some people I know will memorize their text. I don't have that kind of time, but just having it in your head, just having had this conversation with you, I'm sure I'll get up this afternoon and go somewhere and start making connections. And then
Yep.
before you know it, the sermon it's just in you.
Yep.
So,
Yep. You got to be ready to capture those moments.
right.
That's why I try not to write my sermons in the shower, because I can't jot down my ideas. I do it more on a run or when I'm putting a kid to sleep. And I'm like, oh, voice memo. Oh,
Yeah.
kind of a quick thing. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Besides, you shouldn't have electronics and water just, saying.
It's a good thing to avoid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we're all excited to see what comes on Sunday. Sunday. You know the drill. Join us. Open Bible study in the morning. We'll talk more about this text. That's in the room and on Zoom. That's at 9:30, and then at 10:30 the carillon starts playing. You can hear that online, or if you're in the building, you can hear it ringing through the walls. Worship gets rolling, and then virtual coffee hour happens after, where we'll talk more about all of this. So lots of ways. trcnyc.org. We hope you can join us in whatever way you are able to, and even if it's just watching this video, we're glad you were here for this too. It's always a blast to get to spend this time with you.